If you're a technical product manager, you inevitably come across the problem of who to give what task. So who is the developer you assign this current task to? And also, how can you distribute tasks effectively so that everybody moves towards the shared goal? This is a mental model I want to present to you that makes it a bit easier to think about these things. My name is Carlos and I help product managers become more technical. And today we're going to talk about the mental model for parallelization of tasks. And we do this here on this Incl draw. And basically it starts like this. So you got a project and this is here our northern star. This is what we actually want to reach. This is our goal. And below this line, this is everything that we do inside the project. So, and this is the line where we actually have the planning going on, and this is the goal. So we want to move the things from here up there. And this means this is our product fulfillment. Okay, so now you start to plan. You make a big plan of how this thing here could actually be built. And usually things start vague, so plans are not very concrete. This is like just an MVP, let's say. You want to have a couple of things being implemented, but you don't know exactly how it looks like in the real world, how this actually gets done. So the first thing we got to do is cut those tasks up into multiple smaller things. And the next thing we're talking about usually are epics. There are different terms for that. Some people say building blocks or modules. We often use a product called Tiger. It's a free product management tool and it works really well. So Tiger has a concept called epics, and other tools also use epics. So we're going to go with this for now. Epics are basically modules of a software, are bigger chunks of multiple tasks or multiple stories. So you cut them out into epics, and then after that you make the actual tasks or stories. So in our agile world, we often like to call stories. So basically we are calling them stories right now. Okay, so now we have these stories, and some of them are bigger and some of them are smaller. And now we want to talk about the couple of work modes of developers and how you can get this done more efficiently. So let's say you have this kind of thing. There, and this is now one arrow means one developer. So this is my notation here right now. This is the task. Having one small task being worked on by two developers would probably work, but it's only good for training because otherwise people just waste time. So if, let's say, a company has just very religiously implemented pair programming, this might be a waste of time because the tasks are too small. You basically waste two resources to get one thing done. This is why I was a fan of pair programming, and now I'm getting a bit more cautious here. This is something which should be avoided, but of course it can be really good for training purposes. Second thing is, yes, this is now our pair programming case. What if this story or this task is actually quite difficult, or it's so fundamental that two developers need to work on that? And it could be even more. It could be even three developers working on the same thing, because we are doing architecture here. We need to think about this. We need to make a small prototype and test things out. So in those cases, it might actually make sense to put more developers on it, but not on the long run. These are the things that usually happen early in the project or whenever there is architecture decisions to be made. This here is also a waste of time. This often happens if someone does the first prototype of something, and then they get assigned to another project, or they are just not capable of doing this, or some other problems come up, and then someone else takes this over and finishes that. If that happens, that could mean that there's inefficiency in the team itself, or that this task should not have been given to this developer in the first place. What we actually want to do is a parallelization like this. Developers get tasks individually and they move the whole thing over into the goal area. This is where customer acceptance comes in, or where you as a product manager accept the tickets as being done and able to deploy this into production. And this is what we actually want. And of course, how can we do this? And now this is something I've seen done wrong a couple of times. People, especially product managers who are not so senior, they would just kind of give tickets out as they go along and now say, this person is now done, right? And say this moved up. So what do we give to the next person? Okay, so now the product manager goes back and like, okay, this thing here is still there. Okay, let's give it to that person. And now this person works on that. If that happens, the efficiency could also be compromised just because there is no stack to work through. So what we actually want to do is something like this. So we want to have the developers work on one thing, and then they have a stack of things they can work through. And ideally, those things are kind of separated. So it could be different modules in the software, different panels, different roles of users they're going to work for. Let's say this person makes the admin panel, this person makes the user panel or the user dashboard. And now this admin then has the jobs backend. This has a couple of settings. These have a user list and so on. And now this is all related to the users, and this person works with this. And then that way you can parallelize a software development process. And the real requirement we need here actually is to have a list of tasks all lined up. And this is why, and usually in agile development projects, we have this kind of backlog grooming where we know that we can line these things up so that the developer can pick the next and pick the next, pick the next. And ideally we do this in a sprint context. So let's say that this one here is then kept in a sprint, and we know exactly this is what we're going to do in the sprint, and this is outside the sprint. This is the whole reason why we're going to do agile, so that we actually make sure that these boxes are all filled. If we don't do agile, well, it could just be that the project manager might just forget these, and then suddenly this developer is out of work and this person has too much. So this is a very simple mental model, and it all leads to hopefully shipping the product in time. If you like how this content is made, we also have a couple of other videos on how to start projects, which you can find here.